Good evening, everyone out there on YouTube. My name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. In this video, we are going to change out the spark plugs and spark plug wires, also known as coil wires, on my 1995 Mazda Miata MX-5. Without further ado, let's get started. First thing we'll talk about is the goods. So one thing you need to know about the NA or the first generation Miatas is that they were really hard on wires and plugs because of the design of the layout. So you've got this big metal valve cover gasket, and you've got the wires and plugs all laying on top of it, particularly the wires, and the valve cover gasket gets pretty hot. It degrades the rubber insulation on these wires pretty quickly, so they wear out. And you kind of have to do this about every 30,000 miles if you want to keep the engine happy. It's a NA Miata thing. So all that being said, the OEM wires were made by NGK, and when you get them straight from NGK, they are blue instead of gray or black. The part number is RC Romeo Charlie ZE Zulu Echo 21. You can find these. If you try to get them from the parts store, the price is going to be absurd, so don't do that. Get them off Amazon or something like that. Save you some money. That's what I did. And then the original plugs that went into these are NGK V-Powers. Now you can put in other plugs if you want, but if you have a completely stock 1.8 Z-Tech engine, which is what I have, and there that goes, you need V-Powers. NGK V-Powers. The actual plug number is BKR5E-11. So that's Bravo Kilo Romeo 5 Echo-11. Again, you can find these at your parts store. They're going to ask you for a king's ransom, or you can get them online for about half the price. I wound up ordering 6 instead of 4 because, oddly enough, the deal I found made it so that 6 plugs was cheaper than 4. But this is a 4-cylinder engine, so you only need 4 plugs. With all the blibbity blob out of the way, now we're actually going to get down to the work. So how we're going to do this is we're only going to do one wire and one plug at a time. That way we can not get any of the wires confused and maintain the firing order. I believe this engine has 2 different firing orders that it'll work just fine on. I don't have either of them memorized off the top of my head. I can put it in the comments below about what the 2 firing orders are, but if you get it wrong, the car's not going to start, or it's going to backfire and just not be happy with you at all. So we'll start out with the one closest to when you're standing in front, right here, the one next to your oil cap. So just pull it out of the holder, and we see it's number 2 there, or possibly number 3 on the coil pack, but we're just going to get that out of the way. And then we're also going to look down in the well. Let me get a light on there. And the spark well looks pretty good, but you're going to need a long extension and I think it's a 5/8 spark plug socket to get in there on a 3/8 drive. And we'll get that out, and then we'll just go ahead and swap it. Okay, so we got our 5/8 spark plug, we've got our long extension, we've got our 3/8, and we just pop it loose. So this one was not tight at all. Now you could use a standard 5/8 to get this out, 5/8 deep well, but the spark plug sockets have a rubber boot in them normally. Sometimes it's magnetic, which makes it so you can get the plug out when it's deep in a well like this, like so. All right, let's look at the plug. So what I see is that it is, when the camera is behaving, it's very worn. So the electrode, there we go, is worn, and it looks like it's an old V-Power plug, which is good, so have the right one in there. Dadgum, camera, behave. Based on the color, I'd say it was burning okay. I'm gonna put this in my hand like this. Hopefully that'll work better. It was burning okay, and I think this cylinder is pretty healthy. It's just the electrode is worn, that's all. So we'll go ahead and we'll get our new one in. One of the things that I find out really cool here, that NGK acknowledges that there are different kinds of engines out there, and also acknowledges that sometimes you just don't have a torque tool on you. So they have torque values for iron heads, they have torque values for aluminum heads, and they even have just turn rotation if you're doing this with an elbow torque, basically, which is very cool. Now these plugs should be pre-gapped. You should not need to do any gapping by yourself, which is a good thing. Plugs are packed pretty well these days, so you don't have to worry too much about them getting banged up in transport. Sometimes the factory does mess up, but most of the time they don't. So, go ahead and get this open. There's the goodies. Now this is a gasket style plug. It does not have tapered thread for sealing. And you can see that here. See the metal gasket right there? I'm rotating with my fingers. And let's get this guy open. Rawr. Doing things one-handed is slow. Okay. Here is our new plug. Has a gasket on it. If you take a look at the electrode, you can see it's a bit taller compared to the old one. See if I can get these to compare. Yeah, so you can see the one on the left is short, it's worn. Compared to our new one here, it's significantly taller. So, good stuff there. One other thing I'm going to do with these is I'm going to put a little dielectric grease on there, and I'll show you what that is in just a minute. So before we do our dielectric grease, we are going to go ahead and load our new spark plug in. I want to get it seated in the boot, so that way the plug's not going to fall into its hole. We're actually going to place it there, like so. Go ahead and start running that in. So I'm going to do elbow torque. That's generally what I do with spark plugs. But here's the trick of it. You're going to keep going. You're going to start feeling it get tight. And then it's going to get real tight. Once it gets real tight, you go just a tiny bit more. That's it. Don't go crazy. You will crack the porcelain insulator and then your plug won't work. Or you'll snap it clean in two, and then you'll have to try to get it out, which is entirely not fun. Alright, plugs in. If you take a look at the spark wires, you'll notice that they are not all the same length. So that does mean that certain wires need to go in certain places in order to make everything reach correctly. You can see these two are about the same. This one's a bit longer, and this is the longest. So this is the one that we're going to use for what we're working on right now, and it is actually labeled number 1. Again, I gotta go look up the firing order, but what I'm doing is just replacing what I've got, because what I've got does work. This car does run and drive and pretty well, but we're gonna go ahead and get that done. Now what we can do is, this is dielectric grease, and we can put a little squirt of it on either side, in the boot on either side. And what this does is it keeps moisture out, so that water or other substances can't get in and start messing with your electrical connection between your spark plug and your boot. So you can just take a little bit, squeeze it out like that. And I don't have enough hands for this, but squeeze a little out, kind of grab it, just put it across the top of your boot like that, and then go ahead and plug it in. And you can do it on both sides, you can do it on one side, you can do it on neither side. It's up to you. People have a lot of opinions about dielectric grease. I'll do it on both sides. And there we go. Push her down, make it firm. Push her down, make it firm. And we move on. So what I'll probably do is set you guys up on the time lapse for this next part, and I'll just keep cranking out these wires until we're all done, and then we'll do a test fire to make sure everything's okay. Good morning, everyone, or almost good afternoon, but today is a new day, and go ahead and give her a crank and see how our plug and wire job went. makes a lot of extra vibration when pieces are missing. Got this torn apart for a separate project. There is something in there that is vibrating something fierce. Anyway, so we're cranked, we're warming up. We'll see how she runs once we get back down to operating temp. Okay, so the engine's still not quite smooth enough to pass the nickel test, but it is running, it is idling smoother than it was before. And overall, I'm pretty pleased. I haven't had a chance to take it for a test drive yet to see if I got more power or responsiveness, but it's a step in the right direction. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode. We changed out the plugs and wires in my 1995 Mazda Miata MX-5. If you've got a comment, leave a comment. I like to read them. I like to learn from them. I like to reply to them. If this video has helped you, please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the fun YouTube stuff. And remember, I make the mistakes so you don't have to. I'll see you guys next time.